Ahmadinejad. As a human rights defender, I oppose him for using public beatings and torture as a political tool. As an American, I oppose him for sponsoring terrorism that kills US soldiers and brings anguish to Iraqis. As a Jew, I oppose him for denying the suffering of my people, who were mercilessly slaughtered in the death camps. President Ahmadinejad, to a large degree, embodies the dark ideologies of violence that now haunt much of the Islamic world. Nevertheless, I am deeply troubled by the nationwide reaction to Ahmadinejad, and also by the reaction of many individuals here. Many people here have expressed outrage at the very idea that Ahmadinejad should speak. I understand the sentiments behind this very well, but I disagree. If we are to defeat Ahmadinejad and radical Islam more generally, it will not be with the force of our arms, but with the power of our ideas. The war on terror is not just a military struggle of CIA agents against terror cells or of Marine brigades against insurgents. It is also an ideological struggle, as over 1 billion Muslims worldwide choose between moderate Islam and radical jihadism. As members of one of America's foremost intellectual institutions, we must have the courage to engage in this intellectual struggle. Today, we had a chance to confront ideas that are strange, different, and perhaps abhorrent to many. And now, we must address them. Starting today, we can begin to teach the world a lesson on the true meaning of freedom. America was envisioned by the Founding Fathers as a beacon of freedom. But since September 11, 2001, our relationship with Islam has been dominated by these words: our grief will turn to anger, and our anger to resolution. This was President George Bush's declaration after the September 11th attacks. The sentiments behind it, and the President's steadfast resolve to defeat terrorism where it was strongest, were justified, even noble. But the results have been disastrous, and have undermined not only our moral authority, but also our military might. Let's look at the record. In Iraq, 4 years after the successful deposition of Saddam Hussein, terrorists have never been more powerful. In Lebanon, 1 year after an American-backed Israeli bombing campaign destroyed Hezbollah's campaigns in the south, Hezbollah has never been closer to ruling the country. In Somalia, last December, the US supported an Ethiopian invasion to overthrow a newly formed Islamist government. But the result has only been more jihadi attacks than ever before. In Afghanistan, our supposed model for success, it has been 5 years since the Taliban were removed from power. But they are gaining strength in Afghanistan, and now dominate the tribal areas of neighboring Pakistan. Whether it is the US Army, the Israeli Army, the Ethiopian Army, or the Pakistani Army, military gains from successful anti-terror operations are only temporary. But the anger of the local population towards foreign troops, the grief towards civilian deaths, and towards the chaos and despair is permanent. America is losing the fight against jihadism everywhere. We will never win so long as our foreign policy is based primarily on military power and not on the power of our ideals. This must change starting today. We cannot fight anger with anger, nor match chaos with chaos. We can only drive away the darkness by kindling the brightest candle possible. In the late 1980s and the early 1990s, millions of Eastern Europeans decided, of their own accord, that the war against capitalism was over, and communism fell, not to conquering armies, but to candlelight vigils.